I talk about political language, I try to avoid my personal political positioning. And I try to be unbiased, for example. There are many other colleagues of mine, friends of mine, who teach political discourse, and they are biased. They don't care. It's up to the students to realize if they agree or not. And this is another methodology, but it's nothing to do with this. Making yourself sound fair or unbiased. Now, think of a politician that you don't like, that you don't agree with. It's very difficult not to sound unbiased, because I can't give any examples. Think of a politician that you don't like, but a politician that has been successful enough to sound unbiased and fair to many people. For example, people who don't like Trump never thought that Trump was unbiased or fair, but for many other people, the 51% or whatever it was, I can't remember exactly, of American people thought that he was fair and unbiased. So to sound fair, again, like Orwell already wrote, and also Aristotle, doesn't mean that you are ethical. And that is again the discourse on euphemistic language and dysphemistic language. You sound fair, you sound unbiased, but who tells me that you are really unbiased and so ethical? Again, controversial. We need some instruments. And then you can introduce your expertise. If I go to a conference, I say, I published here and there, I did a conference here and there, I have had, 20 years of teaching experience, etc. Think of applying for a job. Have you ever applied for a job? Yes. So, when you go to, what do you do when you apply for domanda per un lavoro? How do you call that moment when you discuss with your boss to be, or director to be? In English? Interview, okay. When you go to the interview, which is not intervista, il colloquio di lavoro, you go to the interview, what happens? You must persuade the person about what? About your abilities, your skills. You have to sound fair and ethical, don't you? Because if you don't sound ethical, you're not likely to be liked. Sorry for the wordplay. It's not easy that the other person who must hire you will like it. So, of course, you can introduce your expertise. And in fact, what do they ask normally? Have you ever worked in this field? What have you done? How have you done that? What was your most favorable point in dealing with the customers? Just remembering some old interviews. When I was interviewed for the position at CBS, of course, they asked me about my previous experience. How did you teach? What did you use? Which books have you read? How have you organized your books and articles and essays? And I had to convince them that I was doing it in an ethical way, of course. And so we are all persuaded and persuasive in our lives. Sorry, I forgot. Using correct grammar and syntax. Let's go back to descriptivism and especially to prescriptivism. Using correct grammar and syntax. This is another controversial issue, but we have witnessed in class that if we let me be precise. If we don't use the right language, we are dismissed. Many people here, the girl is not here, can't remember her name. The girl is always sitting there. She said, if I was, yeah, I think so. she said something like, if I receive a mail or a message from somebody who is approaching me and all the conjunctivi are wrong, I decide that I'm not interested in him or her, which is something that we shared, that we can understand, because that's a sign of your credibility. Se io saprei doesn't really make you credible, does it? Although we know that some excesses of prescriptivism can be very dangerous in terms of cooperation and communication in general. But here again, with populism, which will be the last lesson on this topic, with populism, we already noticed yesterday that, for example, Donald Trump doesn't really use proper grammar and syntax, but that is a deliberate choice. I doubt that Donald Trump doesn't know English. It's impossible. So it is a deliberate choice to avoid the do, or to mix do and does, or to create some unconventional grammar structures. But that, again, in recent times has changed, and it has made many people credible. It is just another strategy. But generally speaking, ethics has to do with a prescriptivist view of language. Okay, ethos is related to the persona or reputation associated with the speaker-writer. This persona is constructed based on the credentials and reliability of the author. For instance, in a speech, ethos is what signifies to the audience that the speaker knows what they are talking about. So if I have a speaker in politics or a spokesman o rappresentante, colui che parla, pensate, a spokesman, I must be credible. So people, my audience, must feel without any doubt that I know what I'm talking about, that I'm not improvising, that I'm not just guessing, because I have studied. If I come here and I haven't studied linguistics at all, and I try to guess, I'm trying to be impressionistic about language, it is obvious that I shouldn't teach linguistics, because it doesn't mean anything, or it's history or any other subjects. Or a doctor who doesn't use professional terminology. Can you trust a doctor who is vague in his terminology or her terminology? I wouldn't. I would be paranoid, at least paranoid, and change the doctor, for example. So doctor is a good example to understand ethics. For example, advertising. If we talk about credibility and ethos, for example, who is going to advertise makeup, lipstick, or mascaras, or shadows, eyeshadows, whatever? Who? L'Oreal, or what are the most famous brands? Clinique. A Collistar, la marca, sì. Women. Well, if the product is for women. And this opens another question which we don't want to open now, not to be men, but what kind of women? For example, Theresa May can be used as a testimonial for advertising red lipstick, or red makeup artist, or think of advertising of shampoos, models. Are they beautiful or socially considered ugly? They're very beautiful, because if they advertise makeup, they must be able to wear them, to use them, eat them. Sportswear, Nike shoes. Who normally advertise Nike? The Nike. Who? Athletes. Can I go and advertise Nike shoes? No, I wouldn't be credible, because I'm not fit enough. You can see that I'm not a sports person. Definitely, although I'm slim, but I'm not so fit, for example. Or, I don't know, Can Lino Banfi advertise Nike shoes? No, it's impossible. It will be funny. That is another strategy, humor and irony. That is another strategy. But generally speaking, the testimonials of advertising are credible because they know what they are talking about. So a footballer or a basket player know what the best shoes for practicing sports are, for example. So this is a very easy example that makes you understand very easily. The second is logos, and I think that logos is very easy to understand, much easier. Logos means logical, basically. Although there is something, for me, extremely fascinating about the word logos. Logos is the appeal to logic, means to convince an audience by use of logic or reason. If I am logical, I sound intelligent, clever, I sound as a person who is able to construct an argument in logical terms. And what happens when people are so logic, like my mother used to be, is still, and as a teenager it really made me angry, because I couldn't really argue with her, because she was so logical and she was always right. Think about this if you experience something similar. Logos is the Greek word for word. However, the true definition goes beyond that. Logos, logopedia or whatever, is word. It's also something else. And can be most closely described as the word or that by which the inward thought is expressed. Il inward thought, il pensiero interiore, quello che va proprio all'interno. In Latin it is called oratio and ratio, and the inward thought itself, ratio. Anyway, the word logic is derived from logos. So logos means word, but also brain in Greek. Logos means both the mind, but also language. So Aristotle was actually the first one noticing that the Greek language had the same word to describe both the mind and language. The same word, logos. In Latin, ratio come raziocinio, as raziocinio in Italian, ratio, but they change with oratio, but the root is there. Oratio is the orator, so the person who speaks. So the connection in Greek language is amazing, because Greek language had already discovered everything and described everything really in linguistic terms. For a linguist to study Greek is amazing, really. And when I hear that it's not useful, I always I feel very depressed all the time. Anyway, logos or Latin is not useful. I really feel depressed. Logos is to be intelligent. So why couldn't I argue with my mother? Because she is, and she was when I was younger, a logical woman. Very intelligent, very logical. What happens if your interlocutor is really logical? How would you answer? Or how wouldn't you answer? Can you disagree easily? It's like being cornered. If you use logic or a logical argument, not talking about arguing like my mother and I, but if somebody is trying to persuade you into believing something by the use of logic, you can't disagree because everything is perfect. I'll show you. We will discuss some typical examples of logic in arguments. You are cornered. You can't react to strict logic. You can't answer because everything is already perfect, like my mother used to be, and I was really going mad. Logos can be developed by using advanced theoretical or abstract language, citing facts, using historical and literal analogies, and by constructing logical arguments. Citing facts, theoretical and abstract languages, historical analogies, immigration, how many references to barbarian people have you heard in the media or in political discourse? immigrants associated to barbarians, I barbari. Therefore, Italian people are obvious memories of history at school. I barbari, something that is really threatening. They destroyed the Roman Empire, our roots, our homeland, our cultural